Howdy, howdy, howdy. It's Rodfather 916. I was brought up in the San Francisco Bay Area, lived most of my life until I moved out of the area in San Francisco. We lived in the East Bay. My friends were white, black, Mexican, Chinese, Samoan, Russian, Japanese, and the list goes on. This is in probably the early 70s. I'd like to think that we were, well, not like to think, we were integration 2.0. And a lot of the schools across the country started integrating. Now, a lot of black kids, parents would put their kids in white schools, but there was resistance from white kids going to black schools or Mexican schools or any school where there are minorities. Liberal places like Boston resembled the South, Kansas City, Central High School. It was that time. I was always a tall and big guy. I mean, by the time I was 13 in middle school, I was over 6 feet tall, over 250 pounds. And so what I learned back then was mob mentality. That was my first introduction to mob mentality. If you are the minority, say one of the few black students, Asian students, or Mexican students in an all-white school, you're going to be terrorized. Just plain and simple. They'd surround you and want to beat you up. Well, the same thing happened to white students when they went to schools where the student body was black or Mexican or brown and black. And this was quite shocking for white students, or should I say their parents, but students of color went, this is what happens to us all the time. What's the problem here? And we're talking about, again, we're talking about just coming out of civil rights. That was passed, I think it was in 66. I think I was 10 when that passed. And there wasn't a whole lot of integration. And having your friends come over who were white or different color was always controversial. I remember when they discovered I had white friends. My family was over and my mother was cool. She was confused because this is not her world. Her world's always been all black. But there were other people who were just ignorant. So you have white friends, huh? Any of them call you nigger? Well, they're going to, or do you think you don't think you're a nigger? Well, see, nigger was not a word that they used in my household. My mother thought the lowest of low, black people use that word. But there were people outside the family would go, So, yeah, just wait. You think you white, but just, they're going to call you a nigger. Well, none of that ever happened. At least in the Bay Area. None of that happened. My friends were aware of the limitations of your parents. So I stopped bringing people over to my house. Everything just went unsaid. We knew. But I didn't have a relationship with my friend's parents, Larry's parents. I didn't have a relationship with him. It was all about Larry. Talk about cars, girls, sports, and McDonald's. Our life was McDonald's. I think a hamburger at that time was like 25 cents. So for less than $1, you could get it on at McDonald's. and wanting to drive and have our driver's license. Those are the big things, right? And that hasn't changed much today, you know, and having a mustache. And it's funny. This is 1970, between 1970 to 1973, 74. Ignorance abound, but you know, you get through it. We would tell racial jokes to each other. It was it was fun, you know. It was a joke. Nobody took it seriously. You know, white kids would go to blacks in Mexico. We know y'all like Kool-Aid. Y'all happy now they got Kool-Aid. I bought you some Kool-Aid. Back in the day when Kool-Aid was a nickel a pack. How old am I? Shut up. But communities are bubbles. People think a lot, they act a lot, they react a lot. They react differently. So when went time for me to go to college, and it was not easy for me to go to college, I didn't want to be in San Francisco. I wanted to be independent, away from the ignorance of family and other adults in my life, and not being questioned about who am I hanging out with. I wanted to start anew. So I thought life would be different in Central Valley. Well, it was completely different. Black people lived on one side of town. Mexicans sort of lived all over. Buses stopped at 6:45. I'm San Francisco. Buses run all night, you know. And I learned things living in the Central Valley, things like cracker and peckerwood and nigger and not letting the sun go down on you. I met black people who questioned how black I was. That didn't happen in San Francisco. The fact that I had white friends, they questioned how my black ethnicity, is that a word? I just made it up. And we're talking now probably 1974. Ignorance abound. I met white people who would tell me at age 18, he's one of the good ones, meaning good black people. And I would smile. I cringe at that today, but at the time I took that as I remember having a boss. I worked at a 7-Eleven type store, and he liked me, and she took me over to meet his wife and kids. And his wife was fantastic. I mean, she is home with 2 or 3 small babies. I don't remember. I know it's at least 2. And she was just happy to see somebody other than the kids and her husband. And she was great. And I remember him saying, you know, Rod's one of the good black people. Made sure he said black people instead of colored. But I met black people who were racist against white people. White people who, if they were minorities, didn't want to hang around a group of people. I was very much politically involved in school. I was part of it used to be a Black Student Union, and when I came along, it changed from Black Student Union to a Pan-African Student Union. And the university put La Raza and the Black Student Union together because they didn't want either one of us on campus. But we knew it was up, and we formed a bond. So I met a lot of Mexicans, learned a lot of migrants. There's like first generation. Some were born in Mexico. Others were born here, but they were like first generation Mexicans. And, we would share racism stories, and we bonded. But outside of that group, there was racism. My white friends, if there were too many black people or too many Mexicans, go, well, we're not feeling comfortable. We're the only white people here. And then I had black people. And now, mind you, I'm having a party at my apartment, and they're saying, you can't be having these Peckerwoods here because this is a black event. And I'm saying, this is my party. Nobody bought anything here. So now I got a rumor. It's like, oh, okay, he don't know who he is. He don't know who he is. He's just lost. He thinks he's white. Listen to the way he talks. Talks like white people. The bubble. I dated black, white, Mexican. In the valley, they had a lot of Armenians. This was the first time, like Kim Kardashian. I learned if it had an IAN, it was usually Armenian. And some white people, when I played a little football, some white people will, if a white girl dates a black man, she's tarnished forever. No self-respecting white person would ever date a white woman after she's been with a black man. And these are kids my age. And that was strange coming from San Francisco. Coming from the area is like, where am I? Okay, I wanted to be from home. I wanted to be away from home. So this is being away from home. But ignorance was just abound. It seemed if you were going to college, you were what's the word I'm looking for? If you were going to college, you were turning against black people, or you're trying to be white. You're trying to be white. It wasn't that you're turning away black people, but you were trying to be white. And then there were these invisible rules. And we're talking again the 70s. No self-respecting black man would date a white woman. However, a lot of the brothers would date the lightest skinned black woman they could find. Meanwhile, you have anger and bitterness from the dark-skinned sisters. Because he might as well have married a white person. Just strange. Just strange. And I just got tired of it. I had never lived. I longed for my friends in San Francisco. I longed for the insults. How long did it take you to learn to use a knife and fork? Yeah. Listen, and Chinese or Japanese. They didn't have any Chinese friends, but I had a lot of Japanese friends and Filipino friends. And, they make fun. They said, well, you guys were a slave. How long was before you had shoes? And it would, nobody was ever insulted. I can't remember a time where, well, there was one exception. Somebody who was new to our group didn't understand that we're just joking. But a lot of those kids I know today, we found each other during COVID. And we're talking like 40, 50 years later. And I learned from those kids that despite their color, white, Mexican, and Asian, they were going through the same hell that I was going through with my family. I didn't know that my friend Larry, his mother who adored me, and she adored me as long as I stayed away from his sister. I think his sister was like much younger. I think she was in middle school. It's like, why would I want to do that? So fast forward, I left the Central Valley. I dropped out of class. I dropped out of school. I just didn't like it. It's very difficult for me to go to Central Valley. And we're talking now probably 50 years. um, because there was really nothing positive except except with the exception of my counselors and people helping me along. I mean, if you watch any of my videos, one of the ongoing things in my video was that I didn't have the family I wanted. I didn't have a supportive family. In fact, I had sort of a vindictive family. But God put strangers in my life to help me. Complete strangers to give me money, to give me shelter, to watch out for me. And in turn, I try to pass that on. I didn't have the family I wanted, but God gave me the family I needed. And my family is large, it's rich, it's multicultural, and it stretches from different countries. And if I'm on the East Coast, there are Jewish families, Italian families, and Irish families that would take me in today, decades later. So the racism and the limitations that a lot of people, have because they haven't been exposed to different colors changed me. I mean, when you're exposed to people, you realize you have more things in common than not in common. But people who live in a bubble believe that black people and people of color want to retaliate, or black people believe that some white people secretly hate them, and it's just some 50 plus years later, it's just exhausting. So I'm at retirement age. I retired a little over a year, almost a year and a half. And my family has property in Texas. And I'm one of the principal owners of the property. So I said to myself, for $15,000, $20,000, I could buy myself a trailer, a septic tank. It didn't have to be a brand new trailer as long as I had air conditioning and internet access. And I could live in this town and all I'd have to pay is utilities, my land. But this small town in Texas, is very segregated. This town of 100,000 people has 3 Walmarts. Black people shop at one, white people shop at the other. And I was there for a number of days. And they were having a jazz concert in downtown of this town. And everybody at that concert, except for the people selling barbecue, were white. And then I met a couple of family members who quizzed me about, in California, how come we have so many white members in the family? Because my family is multicultural. My children are biracial. And there are a lot of biracial children in our family. And I got to my hotel and I said, I can't do this. I'm too old. It was one thing being 18 and 19 and living through this ignorance. But I don't want to explain. I don't want to have the conversation. I don't have the debate. But I realize I can't close the door on the whole community, including my family and friends. I don't want to experience, Rodfather, we're the only white people here, we don't feel comfortable. Or black people saying, why are you hanging out with them? Because even in 2024, 50 years later, black people, and I've discovered it's not just black people, But Hispanics and Asians and other groups, their own people question how authentically black, Mexican, Asian they are. They're questioning if they have maybe one or too many friends of a different color. In 2024, I was watching these teachers, professors. I'm probably old enough to be their parents, saying before one could get it out, "How black are you?" I don't want to do this anymore. I don't have the energy. It just weakens my soul. I don't have the energy. I'm not a mean person. So I said to myself, I need to stay in Sacramento. Sacramento is racially diverse. When me and my wife moved here, biracial couple, we went to a school. My son was acting, and there were more biracial families together than they were same race. And it just happened to be that community. Sacramento is not perfect. I mean, of course, you have people who live in those narrow bubbles. But even in places that I love, like New York, um, you don't have those. You don't have a lot of that here in Sacramento. My problem with Sacramento is I love big cities. I don't know why I was thinking of Texas, but I love big cities. I got a lot of energy, and I love the many things you can do. I get a lot of energy. Like I fell in love with London. The first time I've been to London in years. I've been to Paris, but Paris is okay. It's a beautiful place. Lots of good food. But I wouldn't want to live there. But London, I could live there easily. But London's more expensive than New York. So unless I win the big lotto, that's not happening. But I'm tired. I just don't want to explain. I don't want to go through the he's a good one. Even the day I have a few white friends who I've known for 20, 30, 40 years, there are questions there. And there's nothing I like but to have honest discussions about race. It's how we get to know each other. My comfort again from race is because I've been around different groups. And after a while, again, you realize that you do have more in common. It's not that big a thing. However, if you talk to just black people, oh, they haven't suffered major. How do you know? You've never had an extensive discussion with someone over here. There were white slaves. There were Mexican slaves. How do you know that? But at age 67, I don't want to have these discussions. I don't want to have these discussions. The same discussions. I find people in the world a wonderful place. And I like learning. Right now I'm learning about the Palestinian conflict and what's happening in Israel. It's all very, very sad. But before I can comment about it, as far as I'm concerned, I need to know more about it. I don't trust people because I've been a victim most of my life of stereotypes and misinformation. Well, they all do it. One of my favorite or should I don't know if I want to say favorite, one of the memorable lines I had with a family member who asked me about my former wife. I think I'd been married maybe a year. We're sitting in the kitchen and she goes, "Has she called you nigger yet?" That was a thing. I didn't realize that, when we went through the vows and all the discussion we had, I didn't realize there was going to be a section where she calls me. But I understand her ignorance. I do. And I have a lot of patience for it. But I would think human beings would have progressed beyond the early 70s. And the reality is, through my blogs and meeting people, people still live in their bubbles. People of color are just as racist as white people. Black people, brown people, Asian, they have stereotypes about black people. What black people have stereotypes about some Mexicans. Whites have stereotypes of everybody who's not black, and I'm not generalizing. I'm not saying that all of everything, but it seems like after all these years, things would be different. Now, in my case, I think there is some difference. God, I got chalky eyebrows, dry eyebrows. Since I got married, I'm no longer married, but since I've got married, there are a lot more interracial marriages. You see it on television, and a lot of people are more aware. I was in West Texas, and I went to a Trump rally. I had a blog, and I got in. They gave me a sign. This is Black for Trumps, and somehow it slipped out of my hands. I couldn't take it why. I'm not a Trump supporter. I just went there to cover, to talk to people, and when I had that sign, people came up and talked to me. It's good to see you. This is God, I don't know if it was 2017. I don't remember. But I remember having that sign that says Trump, blacks for Trump. So I could get in there. Because, they were like, okay, what do you want? I'm here to prepare it. You here? They're trying to figure a way. They're trying to figure a way not for me to come in, but I was let in. Immediately, they had me wait until I got this big, big sign that said Black for Trumps. And people approached me. White people approached me right and left. They were so happy to see me. I hope you tell your friends. I hope you tell your friends about Trump. And nice to me. People pat me on the back. I lost my sign. We're going to hold to that. I lost my sign. No one said anything to me. No pats on the back. No grabbing my hand. No patting me on the shoulder. No nothing. They couldn't trust me. And I interviewed people and I learned a lot from Trump supporters. Many of them in my age group. In fact, I think the base of the MAGA, because I believe this is the last hurrah. I'm 67. I don't think many of us will be around for 2028. And for a lot of those people, the world changed too quickly. It's like, wait a minute, we got a black president? And now gay people are allowed to get married, and the Republican Party, as we know it, have abandoned us. This is sort of the reports I got. And a lot of people just afraid to change. A lot of white people are afraid to change. It's going to be real scary. Texas now has more people of color. So by 2028, the Republicans either open that tent or it'll be like California, where the Democrats have a supermajority. I don't think that's a great thing, but that's Republicans doing to Republicans. I'm going off base a little bit, but I would think things would change. But right now, I just don't want to go through this. I don't want to go through the explanations, the good black person, or am I black enough? It's just hard to believe in 2024. After Obama, after all of these things, we are still questioning and debating and unable to trust. Black people are unable to trust any black person that has white friends. And then you have whites who are nervous. A friend of mine said the other day, black people are doing themselves a disservice by posting all these videos showing us committing crimes or having fights, because it's fueling the racist who believe that we have a propensity for violence. Don't know what the answer is. So I'm going to end here. I look forward to people having comments. But yes, in 40, 50 years, not much has changed in the black community, the brown community. We have changed, but there are these stereotypes and unsubstantiated beliefs that was true in 1974. That's true today in many cases, not all cases. Again, I don't want to mislead anybody in saying that everybody does that. That requires me to know everybody. But the fact that these conversations are taking place troubles me. So I will be selling the property in Texas. This is California. I'm not going to be able to get a trailer here unless I go into the rural areas of California. And Lord knows what I'm going to find there. This has been 30 plus minutes, a super long video. I hope you find this interesting. I hope for some of you this will spur possible conversations. I'd like to know your experience. And again, if you disagree with me in any way, I want to hear it. Just be respectful. I'm going to reply respectfully. This is the Rod Father, wishing everybody love, joy, peace, and happiness. It's a choice. I hope you choose happiness. If you're watching me on YouTube, please like and better still subscribe. And if you're on TikTok or Instagram, follow me. Follow me, please. Thank you all for watching. This is extra long. If you hung on for 35 minutes, I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. It's a Rodfather 916, and he's out. Thanks for watching.